Hello everyone and welcome along to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I am your host this evening as we look back over Rangers' first game back following the international break. I'm joined tonight to go through everything that happened at Pittodrie, all the talking points, all the fallout from it as well. So I'm joined tonight by Tommy McIntyre. How are you doing, Tommy?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Craig. A slightly scratchy voice, as you can probably tell. That's maybe from shouting at the TV earlier on today. We'll see how we go with that one. But no, nice to get back to actual proper football.
Absolutely, and I'm delighted that the fact I've got my Christmas tree up in November did not enter your introductory statement there. So I am delighted with that. I'm just fighting.
I was saving it for mid podcast. To be honest with you, it's November. You know,
it's the last weekend of November. By the time we get to next Saturday, it's December. So Christmas tree's up. We're embracing it. It's the festive season. Let's go with it.
I draw the watchers' attention to your Christmas beard that you're trying to grow there as well. So very, very Santa-esque.
I'm trying to get all of Santa's holidays, to be honest. That's why I'm really growing it.
I hear that.
So obviously today turned into potentially a bigger game than we already thought it was going to be after the results on Saturday across the league. Rangers going to Pittodrie is always a tough one. We'll go on to talk about whether Aberdeen do in fact raise their game against us whenever they play us or not. But we went up to Pittodrie and finished 1 each. I don't think that's going to be a spoiler to anyone in the fact that it finished 1 each. Was a strange game, to be honest. It felt like we were the better team. Didn't quite get going in the final third in any way. Some slack defending, particularly early on in the game, and we just struggled to break Aberdeen down. I saw Philippe Clement had said on Twitter that he felt we deserved all 3 points, which I probably agree with, having watched the highlights back. But it was a strange game to watch. I felt, Tommy, how did you view it? How did you view the performance? What's your sort of overall reaction to the game today?
I think that's probably pretty fair, actually. If you dissect it in the cold light of day, we've created more than enough chances. We knew there was a lot of pressure because of those results, or that result that you referenced from yesterday. Ultimately, we found ourselves in a position where we gave away a stupid goal. We gave Aberdeen something to cling to. And they created a couple of things as well. You know, the forward players were giving us problems. I mean, Miovski, etc., are good players. I quite like Miovski as well. But yeah, we got ourselves down that cul-de-sac that we've done lots of times of, right, we've got an opportunity to squeeze something. Let's give away a stupid goal. Let's not take our chances. And then let's see if, something comes of it. Second half, we tried to force it a little bit more. Too many players going missing. I'm sure we'll touch on that later on as well. But ultimately, yeah, we could have easily won it. The best thing you can probably say is we didn't lose ground. And there's been enough of that in our recent history of Celtic dropping points, us not capitalising in any way, shape or form, or indeed sliding further back. So at least it's status quo as it was as we entered the weekend. But an opportunity definitely missed.
Absolutely. There's plenty of comments coming in already. Thanks very much to everyone who's currently watching. Please send in your thoughts as we sort of go through the main talking points in the game. We'll bring as many as we can up on the screen. Scott05 says slow start to the game cost us, in my opinion. Cubby Cubster says evening all, disappointed we couldn't exploit the points dropped yesterday. Pete Lawrence, very disappointing not getting 3 points, but nothing lost, nothing gained between us and them. We have to move on. Tommy, after Celtic dropped points yesterday, there was obviously the usual winding up, or mandatory winding up that happened on Twitter, but I think it arrived with an undertone of, oh no, now we need to deliver. Kind of, it was, and I think in every Rangers fan's head it was, okay, that's good, but we need to turn up, and we haven't traditionally, I guess in the last few seasons, we've not turned up in these moments to try and to put the pressure on the other side of the city. We've not turned up in these moments to really gain back the points that we need to gain back. How frustrating do you find it that time and again we let these chances pass us by?
Well, I think we're before the watershed. So I'm going to give you a polite answer to how frustrating I find that. Listen, I'm the exact same as everybody else who'll be watching and listening. In that, all we want is to see us capitalise on slip-ups. A real opportunity there to have got it, with our game in hand and stuff like that, to be really focused in on that upcoming Old Firm game and say, right, if you could have got to the end of this calendar year level on points and go into that winter window with a chance to change some of the personnel and for Philippe Clement to continue to build what he's trying to build there, I mean, that'd have been absolutely perfect. As it is, it didn't quite go our way. I think the performance, commenters are absolutely right. I think we were better in the second half, and off the top of my head, I think it's like 22 shots, 10 on target, and like 70% possession and stuff like that, right? So we were dominant, if you like. Stupid goal, very slow start. I completely agree with people in the comments there, and we could have found ourselves 2 down. Actually, good save with Butland as well. And then you go, right, we just need to make sure we get back into it. Took ages. We finally got the penalty. Real pressure penalty. James Tavernier steps up and does his job. We've hit the bar and hit the post as well. Bar twice, actually.
Bar twice, right.
Balogun's header and Lawrence's half volley and stuff like that. Yeah, it felt like we were going to get ultimate frustration, which is actually they've had a terrible result and we went a further point behind. It's incredibly frustrating, but we know that we've got players who maybe don't match up to the mentality when it comes to, it matters. Yeah. As in the pressure game, expectancy levels are going up. Philippe Clement will be watching all that as well. He'll have made judgments on some of these players, and it's about, can we shift people out in the winter window and drag ourselves over the line. Ultimately, though, we shouldn't miss out maybe the wider picture, which is Celtic will continue to drop points and we might as well. We just need to build that level of consistency to try and hammer home and get the gap down, because it's absolutely not unassailable. And I think there's a real chance that we could do something if we just tweak the personnel in the right way come the winter window.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you in terms of the gap not being unassailable. And when Michael Beale left, everyone was like, the season's done. There's no chance of bringing it back. And the last few weeks have really given us as Rangers fans a shot in the arm in terms of the recent seasons. Celtic have been a bit like a train against the other teams, and they've just boxed them off week after week after week. This season, that is not the case at all. Pete Lawrence says the pleasing thing is Celtic are clearly starting to stutter more often, and that's definitely a factor that comes into our mentality. I guess my frustration lies in the phrasing of the question that I just asked you, in terms of time and again, we just don't take advantage of these opportunities. We really should be sitting here 6 points back with a game in hand and everything to play for as we go into what is a tough run of fixtures. But Celtic are finding that as well, and I think that's where my main frustration lies.
Yeah, I agree with you. I should probably say, just to kind of counterbalance it, Celtic won't keep slipping up. They're a good side, right? And they've been over the course and they've won titles recently and other trophies, etc. So we do need to take our opportunities when they come, because there's not going to be a slew of drop points. I don't expect it, and they'll tweak as well. But the frustration factor's off the chart, because you're saying exactly as we're duplicating here to some extent, but right, there's a chance to claw the gap back, to get it in your own hands, to go and do something about it, not rely on other people's favours. You go to a place where it's going to be tough, right? But again, and that's maybe the criminal part. And I think Philippe Clement alluded to it in his post-match comments as well, which is, it's going to be tough at Pittodrie. Their fans, all 10 of them, maybe 20 that were in the stadium or whatever, are going to be up for it as well. Their players are going to be up for it. Your rivals have just dropped points, you get a chance to claw it back, and yet we have a very slow start to the game. And you think, well, you sure as hell know that Philippe Clement is not saying before they walk out onto the pitch, just dip your toe in the water, guys, and see how it goes the first 5-10 minutes. He'll have wanted them front foot, contain them, get people frustrated, try and get the early goal. As it is, some of these same actors that we've got in this squad go out and go, right, we'll sit back a little bit, we'll start really slowly. All of a sudden, you find that we concede a silly goal, very similar to the one we conceded against Celtic when Kyogo scored, actually, in terms of that partnership being broken open at the middle. and then we have to claw our way back in, and it doesn't help when you miss chance after chance, and we'll come to some of the people who did that. But yeah, the squad has to take, or the players have to take the blame for that slow start, because they knew it was on the line, and yet they did not come out the traps and allowed Aberdeen to force a style of play onto us, which took the best part of 70, 80 minutes to then clamber over.
Yeah, I realised we started this podcast on a bit of a rant about how frustrated we are. I guess that kind of reflects how I think a lot.
We're still talking about the Christmas tree. I'm very frustrated.
I'm fully on board the Christmas tree. I'm well ahead of that. I'm fully on board with the Christmas tree. The festive season is here to stay for the next month. And I'm fully on board.
It's November. It's not the festive season. Festive season is December. Although somebody will pull me up and say December's a month, not a season, and winter is the festive season. So yeah, I'll get ahead of anybody who's going to be smartly putting that into the comments before they do it to me. Okay.
Anyway, so I realised we started off in a bit of a rant of how frustrated we are and stuff like that, and not to take it down an even more negative road. But Tommy, one of the things you touched on was that a lot of people were speaking about it's the same players, it's the same actors, we're seeing the same story play out over and over again. Is that a theory you sign up to? Who are the actors that they're referring to? What needs to change, and how do we change it?
Well, I think we see performance levels with players that don't. Depends how you want to break it apart, right? So, do I think any player naturally goes out to have a bad game or getting beat? Of course not, right? When I say it's the same actors, and you could look at people like Borna Barisic and stuff like that as well, right? It's, can they bring consistently their best game in the big games? And I think we can reasonably go through. I mean, we could go through that squad in a sense. We don't need to. Thank you very much, David. Much appreciated. I really appreciate that. I knew somebody was going to do it. Damn you, Hutchison. So yeah, I'll take that. Totally blowing my train of thought. Actually, that. No, but we know that some players don't naturally bring their best there, and they consistently go missing in those games where it actually matters. Now, I'm not saying that. For example, I've referenced Borna Barisic there, right? He's not a terrible player or anything like that. And he's not the only one. You look at, and then you look at some of the newer players as well. Sam Lammers has the chance, right, with that header. It's collective to a large extent as well, because you're looking at other players to push you up the park and try and make things happen. I didn't think we collectively dragged ourselves out of the mire today. And that we got the slow start, we get the knock with the goal, etc. We were at 6s and 7s. You're looking about and you're saying, right, who's genuinely trying to grab the game by the scruff of the neck? And that's where you are looking at people. And like I said, I'm not going to reference everybody, but you want to see more. And I think we will see more. This is not a criticism of him, but people like Tom Lawrence, I think there is a real kind of positivity about him, and I think he'll make a difference. I think, again, James Tavernier, we've all been critics and fans of him, but that's a hell of a pressure penalty, because he knows what that's going to be like if he misses that, for him personally. So, yeah, but we know a lot of players, one, don't bring the mentality that's required, or two, maybe don't have the performance levels when it really, really matters, and they just go inside their shell, which means they don't, to get to the end of this, they don't match up with what Philippe Clement is looking for, which is bravery up front, try the pass, take the boo, whatever. Instead, it's I'll cut inside, I'll play the short 5-yarder, I'll go back into my hole, and I'll let somebody else try to take the blame on it, or whatever. So that's what I mean when I say some of the same actors.
Yeah, I think, and to be explicit about who we think the same actors are, generally it is Borna Barisic, Connor Goldson, James Tavernier fits into that category for a lot of people, despite him saving us on many an occasion this season, never mind all the work he's done the seasons beforehand. John Lundstrom probably falls into that category for a lot of people, despite him actually picking up his form again this season from what was a poor last season from. I think those tend to be the people that fall into the same actors. Ryan Jack maybe at times as well when he's in there, but it tends to be in the sort of defensive side of the park. And where I found the real interesting choices today, Tommy, was actually midfield to front in terms of the starting lineup. So when we looked at it, we also knew that Ryan Jack was injured. We knew that Raskin is going to be out for a couple of weeks, and it did raise a bit of a question as to who joins John Lundstrom in that midfield and how does that work? Does Cantwell drop in deeper? Will Cifuentes get his first start under under Clement, and it it was Cifuentes and Lawrence that Clement went for. Did you agree with that choice? I kind of thought actually he didn't really have any other options. If I was looking at the bench and stuff like that, he didn't have any other options in there. How do you feel they worked together? What did you make of their performance today?
Well, I agree with you. I don't think he had much option, and actually, I didn't think they were that bad. I think John Lundstrom's got himself back into that 6, 7 out of 10 kind of situation. He's kind of started to do the simple things and got back on track a little bit. I think he was okay, one or two, kind of certainly in the second half, a couple of loose balls where he put the back four under pressure and stuff like that. But actually was pretty neat and tidy. And that's what you're going to get from him. Neat and tidy. He's not going to play that expansive kind of killer pass, I don't think, much.
Yeah.
Cifuentes, actually, again, I saw a lot on social media, a lot of commentary, people saying that he was pretty poor. I didn't see that in his performance. I thought he was okay. Didn't win himself any fans with the blood and thunder of pulling out of a 50-50 at the start. Yeah. You need to put a marker down, and then
I think he did win the next one. To be fair, he won the next one at the edge of their box.
He did. Yeah, he did.
He used to go full blood at all times to that one.
Yeah. You want to put a marker down anyway in any game. But I thought he was okay. Yeah, again, and you're looking at Philippe Clement is trying to utilise the squad that he's got as well. When you're threadbare, he is a new purchase as well, and I think there's more to come from Cifuentes anyway. Again, I thought he was a bit more head up, trying to make things happen. The big one for me was Lawrence. Again, unlucky to hit the bar. I thought he is just coming back to real fitness, actually, and he will be, I hope, I'm not wrong when I say he'll be a star for us. And amongst that, you're looking at Danilo wasn't at his best, Cantwell wasn't at his best, Sima wasn't at his best. Yeah, but in the midfield, that's what we had, that's what we dealt with. I think we played okay with that. Stood up against some of the physicality of people like Shinnie and all that in there. Certainly weren't overrun in midfield, which was happened before against Aberdeen. But it just wasn't. It was one of those days where we made chances, but we just didn't take any of them. And there's a fine line between saying your luck's not in and the quality of the finishing isn't good enough. And certainly some of the quality of the final ball and the finishing was not good enough.
Yeah, there's a few different comments coming in here, a few different views on Cifuentes' performance, actually. So I'll bring these up and then I'll sort of chip in with my 2 cents on it. So Pete Lawrence, first of all, Sifu and Lunny played similar, efficient in possession, but didn't make any breakthroughs. I think that's a fair assessment and pretty much agrees with what you're saying.
He's just done me out of a job there by saying in one line what it took me 10 minutes to say. So, cheers, Pete.
Not for the first time either.
Yeah, fair enough. I listen to the critics. I'll get to the point.
Tunnocks with an alternative view. I thought Cifuentes was abysmal. Terrible positioning, flat, pointless back passing the whole first half. And then Andrew Barkley as well coming in. Cifuentes was absolutely shocking. If Matondo was fit enough to be on the bench, he was fit enough to start. What has Cifuentes offered in a Rangers shirt in his time here? Cifuentes, okay, seriously. I don't think Cifuentes and Matondo's positions are interchangeable in the park. So that's one I would kind of highlight there. I don't think Cifuentes has really had the chance to prove anything in a Rangers shirt yet. He's had a few substitute appearances. He's maybe started 3 or 4 games. And I think we've won, apart from today, I think we've won all those games that he has started. So my view was that Cifuentes did okay, but we needed more than okay. Really was where my view is. I think in the first half we struggled to dominate the midfield. Philippe Clement is constantly speaking about we want to dominate possession, we want to dominate the territory, we want to dominate the play. I don't think we quite managed that in the first half. A lot of that was down to how Aberdeen were playing. They had a really high pressing 3-5-2 on the go, and it kind of put us at 6s and 7s a wee bit, which was a bit of a concern from my perspective, that we weren't able to adapt to that quickly. And I think that was actually where the first 2 chances for Aberdeen came from, the second of which was the goal. The first one was just a long ball over the top, and our defence was really flat, which I didn't really understand, especially when they've got 2 big guys up front, effectively, with Sokler and Miovski. Sokler ran through and Jack Butland made a cracking save. Potentially more annoying that it happened the second time, because it literally just happened 4 minutes beforehand.
Yep.
I think that was potentially more annoying from that perspective. But ultimately, we struggled. That was more a defensive issue than a midfield one, but we struggled to dominate that midfield and then the open half. But we were still creating chances. We had a solid 25-minute period where we were all over Aberdeen, and we weren't just sending the ball wide and chucking the ball into the box. So we are being more direct. We're playing the ball into feet. We're giving the opportunities for the likes of Cantwell, Danilo to turn the ball around the corner really quickly and make some nice moves in that midfield. So I think we can see what Clement wants the midfield to do and how we're varying up the play. I think it just then comes to, okay, are the personnel playing well enough? How are they matching up to the opposition? Are they being overrun by the opposition? How could they do more? And I think it's probably a fairly even first half in terms of the midfield battle, and that's not where we want to be, nor where I think we should be as a team, especially in a game like that, even though we know that Pittodrie is a difficult place for Rangers to go. I don't think it's necessarily a difficult place for everyone to go, but for Rangers to go. But I think when you look forward as well, Tommy, you spoke a wee bit in your response about Cantwell, Seaman, Danilo, none of them really being at it today. I thought that was an interesting choice from Philippe Clement. I think it's the first time we've seen that three start a game together in those front areas. I actually was thinking in the lead up to the game, and you can give your view on this. Do you think that's our strongest front three on paper, Tommy, at the moment? Do you think it's Sima, Danilo, Cantwell? Realise it doesn't give as much width or pace out wide outside of Sima, but I'd probably say that's, if you're picking a front three from our options at the moment, probably the one you'd put down on paper.
Yeah. There's a serious argument for that being the case. I'm on record saying that I like Matondo, so I think there's more to come from him. I think Cantwell versus Lawrence as well, maybe in the future, if you want to play somebody just behind and actually just go with a Sima and a Danilo slightly closer together in the centre, or you want to push Sima out wide as he was today. But yeah, I don't think many people, or maybe they will in the comments, many people would rail against you in terms of those three. And it's nice to see Philippe Clement trying to see what's the best kind of, I was going to say partnership there, but it's three people, triumvirate, in terms of trying to get the very best out of that, and then bringing Matondo off the bench and stuff like that as well. So he's looking at, what he does with this squad and what he can do with those players. I think Danilo is definitely the answer in terms of the middle. Then you've got, right, what does Clement actually do with Lammers and Dessers? I think Lammers looks like he's maybe to some extent playing himself into Clement's thinking, as in the training ground or whatever, he makes matchday squads and he comes off. Dessers, I'm not entirely sure that I see a way back for him.
Yeah,
I don't think Clement looks like he's turning to him at all with things as well. So he might be one that is jettisoned sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's a long way around the barn to say. I do think that most people would go with you on those being the kind of first choices up front in terms of if you're playing a three.
Yeah, absolutely. I did think it was interesting because, and I'll come back to some good points we made about Todd Cantwell and his positioning and where is actually best for Todd Cantwell to play, because I think he's been a bit ineffective the past few games, if not slightly longer than that. So we'll come back to that discussion in a second. But in terms of Tom, you spoke about...
Sorry, apologies, Craig. I was just looking there in the comments, and I think it's RFC72 makes a good point there as well, and I didn't reference him. McCausland is in there as well, playing himself in there. I'm just very conscious to not dump a whole huge amount of pressure and onto a young boy's shoulders, because eventually there'll be a dip in performance levels. But so far he is direct, and I can imagine he's the type of player that Clement really likes to watch in the background. Just goes at players. He's always looking for the pass. He's not scared to take people on. I think he's played himself into the mix when the first team squads.
Yeah, and I think this comment from RSC72 you pointed out actually probably encompasses the two kind of talking points I was going to move on to. So let's just utilise this comment as a way for us to do that. So I'm going to do it back to front. So he says it has to be Sima, Danilo, and then Rotondo or McCausland or even Lawrence out wide. I think today was really interesting because we knew Aberdeen were going to come out the traps. We knew Aberdeen were going to go for us in the first 20, 30 minutes or so and try and get that early goal, which they could then protect and they could make the most of that and be difficult to break down, etc. You spoke a wee bit there about your backing from Rotondo, and I'm very much on board with that as well. I thought when he came on today, he was really positive, and he was his final ball's getting better and better as time goes on, which was really good. We saw it with the Lammers chance right at the end. His ball was nail on the head kind of thing. It couldn't have been any more pinpoint. But I think when it looks to that, when New Aberdeen were to come at us, they came at us with a sort of 3-5-2 formation, potentially gave us more space out wide. It was instantly crying out for pace to stretch the game and to be effectively the wingers to be out wide all the time. I think we missed that natural width that maybe Rotondo or McCausland would have given us that Cantwell didn't in that wide position. Sima just didn't have a good game, I think, but he obviously has the pace that we know he has, and if we can get him the ball at his feet and get him facing up one-on-one, he can make a real difference, and we've seen that in recent games. Do you think we missed a trick with the lack of pace, I guess, in that right forward area?
Well, I mean, Clement had said that Rotondo, for example, was injured as well, so it kind of constrained what he was doing with that mix. I'm with, I think, the majority of the people in the comments as well. I don't think it naturally works with Cantwell coming off a wing. I think he's better central, or rather starting centrally than going wherever he needs to go in terms of a wee bit more of a free role. I personally like Sima a little bit closer in as well, but yeah, we didn't really expose Aberdeen down the sides overly until later on in the game. And like you said, a fantastic ball by Rotondo. Lammers just needs to do better with that instead of putting it right down the keeper's gloves, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, I think Clement's, again, he's working what he's got right now. I think we are crying out for a little bit more craft in the wide areas. But again, he's also looking at the problem of what do you do with the likes of, right, so you're sitting down and you're going, right, I need to shuffle the pack here. I've got Lammers, Dessers, Danilo, Sima, Lawrence, Cantwell, McCausland. It's a good mix, but actually it doesn't allow you maybe tons of flexibility in terms of the style of play, especially when you say, right, Lammers isn't performing, Dessers hasn't performed, McCausland young, and so he'll be on a slightly different pathway, and don't want to overload him, but he's in there. And then Sima as well is coming halfway through his loan and stuff like that. So you start to look at, right, is he performing, is he happy, all that type of good stuff, and I'm sure he is. And I really like Abdullah Sima, and I know the club are we're very interested in trying to retain his services on a permanent basis, but I reckon that finances might put a blocker to that from the Brighton side. But yeah, we do need to freshen that up. We've actually struggled in the recent kind of years anyway to get somebody in those positions who is absolute consistent quality. Lots of talk recently, and I think our social media kind of killed the rumours off after we'd spoken to the club of Ryan Kent returning. Don't think anybody wanted that, but we do need players who go at defenders, that stretch them and then consistently put in not just good crosses, etc., but chip in with a weight of goals, because that's what you're looking for these wide players anyway. I mean, it's a wider answer, but I think Clement is backed into a corner there slightly with the players that he's got available. They don't naturally fit having a really expansive winger style of play at this point in time. I'm sure that's something he'll be looking to change come the winter window. You're on mute, Craig.
Well, are we in 2020 still?
Wow, there you go. That's staying in. We're not editing that out. That's staying in. There you go.
I went on mute to cough and then forgot to come back. So I'll come on to McCausland in a second. So I'm keen to talk about him and the news this week. But I want to kind of round off the Cantwell discussion, I guess. But I think we're all in agreement that he's in that right forward position. It's not his best position. It's not where he's most effective. He's probably most effective where Tom Lawrence played today, and that's kind of where Fluke Clement might have to end up choosing one or the other, and that's not necessarily what you want to do when two of your better players are vying for the same position in the team. But sometimes it is what you have to do as well. Do you think that number 10 role, or slightly deeper in that, and as I guess the figurehead of that midfield is where Todd Cantwell thrives best?
I think so. Yeah, I like him. I like him central as opposed to being out wide and having to come in. And again, you squaring that off against where do you fit in Tom Lawrence as well, and that drive. I mean, Lawrence, Cantwell, Raskin isn't a bad mix as well there to some extent. So I'm not saying Raskin plays at the top of that. Obviously, he'd be playing slightly deeper, but yeah, I mean they are. And it's just about maximising where they can. I mean, ultimately as well, because of some injuries and because we know we don't have maybe the right balance of players at the moment, Philippe Clement will be asking these players to go to the wall for him by playing out of position. And that's absolutely fine. And it's, it speaks to people like Cantwell and Lawrence, etc. They're willing to shuttle about and do whatever they can just to help the team. So that's always a positive. But yeah, I think if you want to get the best, certainly for me, if you want to get the best out of Todd Cantwell, I think he does his best work centrally, and then matching up and try to find that little nice pass or get that wee run in between defenders as somebody knocks it through. There was a couple of moments like that today, actually, where he was just trying to flick it around the corner and do something nice and cute. And that's what you want from Todd Cantwell. You want that wee bit of invention round about the box that just unlocks those flat 4 and 5, backlines that we come up against. So yeah, I would play him as centrally as I possibly could.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that one. I think that's where his best position is. I think that's where he's shown his best form for us. And actually, we are just trying to find someone who can fit that wide right position, because that seems to be our problem area in terms of we don't know who can play there and who's best to play there. We've tried countless numbers of people there, countless variations of people out in that wing, and I don't think any of them have worked. I think what's the general discussion in our WhatsApp group? We've not seen a good right winger since Candace. Is that where we landed? Maybe well before that, to be fair.
I think as soon as anybody says Candace, I just mute the WhatsApp in the background and refuse to read it. But no, I mean, and that comes back to the people who do pine for the likes of Candace. Candace was a decent servant in terms of he gave his all every game, I think, pretty much, and worked really hard. His quality was varying sometimes. And so come back to the consistency point of we need somebody who's going to chip in with a lot more goals, who's going to be really consistent. You upgrade your squad all the time. You're right, though, lots of bodies have been chucked into that particular meat grinder and nobody's really made it their own. And so, again, you've got maybe McCausland, they are trying to stake a claim, and you say, right, is that an area that we try and move into, either a loan or a permanent purchase come the winter window? Because I think it's somebody that, even with McCausland, we definitely need somebody else in there, whether it's a starter or whether it's to challenge or whatever. So I would like to hope that the club are looking at options on that to move on swiftly. Yeah,
you took the bait there, Tommy. That was a segue I was trying to build in terms of is McCausland the answer? So I think
you gotta go back on mute. Right, I'll just do this. Right? It's a 1-1 between me and the watchers here. Just give me all the comments. Right.
I don't drink tea or coffee, which will be a shock to many of the listeners as well. So
this strikes me as massively odd, right? That you don't drink any of that. I'm not going to challenge you on why. There might be very valid reasons, but I find it hard to trust somebody.
They don't taste nice. They don't taste nice. It's easy as that.
Tea tastes lovely. I am drinking tea right now out of a rather fantastic mug.
Right. Anyway, they're not here. The listeners aren't here to talk about tea and coffee. McCausland,
this is tea. You can get us on our spin-off episodes of This is Hot Beverages.
I will not be tuning into that.
No.
McCausland, obviously during the week, I think it was Fabrizio Romano mentioned that he's going to be signing a contract through to 2027. That was a key thing for the club after interest emerged from various clubs down south, probably because McCausland was it. I just seen Marco Negri's eyes comment, and I will bring that up just for backing me up. So I'm
very much of the opinion I'm Sergio Perini if he's Marco Negri. Right. You can take any. I'll let you slag coffee. Don't be slagging the tea.
I think there's obviously quite a bit of interest from some big club names in there, largely because of the development fee I think it would have cost to take him on versus the level of talent that he's shown. I think it was about 300 grand teams could have gotten him for in the summer had they wanted to. He made his Northern Ireland debut during the international break there. I think he's shown up really well in the games he's played for us so far. He's much more direct than any other player that we have in that role. I think Scott Wright could potentially be the only other direct one, but then you get into, can Scott Wright control the football? Can Scott Wright cross the ball to a Rangers player? That becomes an issue. Whereas McCausland does seem to have that end product, or at least that game awareness, in which even he went down a bit of a blind alleyway with about 10 minutes to go today, and there was about 4 or 5 Aberdeen players around him. He still managed to find Sam Lammers with a pass, which I thought was really. He didn't just try and whip the ball into the box. He thought about what he was doing, and he was able to do that. So I've been really impressed by McCausland and the impact he makes on our team. And for a young guy, Philippe Clement, I think it was his first post-match press conference we were in. He was asked about McCausland, and because he's a young guy, how did he feel about bringing in younger players? And he turned around and went, well, Ross is 21, so actually that's quite old. Which is an interesting approach, because I guess it's not the one we're used to at Rangers, where players don't get thrown in at 18 and let to fly. They're kind of nurtured. We've seen it with Leon King and some players like that, where you try and nurture them in at a slow pace. But I think McCausland can be the answer for us. But I do agree with you, Tommy, that in the short term we need to find someone else in there. I guess there's questions over, can we afford to buy someone else before we ship people out the door? There's questions about that, I guess, given that you obviously did the response to the financial results with Kieran Maguire, and there's a lot of outgoings in those results. So I think there'll be more people going out the door before we get more people in there. But I would be really interested to see, and Finn Fogel's just stolen my thunder a bit there. I'd be really interested to see Matondo on the left and McCausland on the right in a game, just to see how that balance works, and if it offers us something a little bit different. Albeit if it's Sima on the left and McCausland on the right, I think you get a similar kind of impact. But I think I'd be really interested to see that two pacey wingers out wide and see where we go from there. But you do need the guy in the middle that's going to have the movement or have the capability to get on the end. And I think Danilo is the guy to do that for us. What do you think on that one, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Philippe Clement's been pretty overt and honest and open and clear. If you're good enough and you're in around the matchday squads, he'll play you. And you're right, 21 is, it's not as if he's 15 or 16 or 17 or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with McCausland being the answer. I just like competition. I don't think Scott Wright is an answer to anything. Right? Always happy if players prove me wrong, because ultimately that means they're performing in a Rangers jersey. But I just don't see his level of quality there. Wish him all the best. So I think we need at least another body, and that's why I said a moment ago, whether it's a starter ahead of McCausland or it's just competition to force, his development and stuff like that as well. Either or, and there's definitely funds there. Just going back to the money side of things, the club have been clear with that. And when I was looking at the accounts, or indeed discussions with the club as well, that they take this on a case-by-case basis sometimes of, right, who's been identified, can we go and get them? And that's where the loan market's particularly good when it comes to that as well. There's options there. I think you're right, though, we have to move bodies out, and that's where Philippe Clement will be doing all his due hard work over this to say, right, I can get rid of them, I need to trim the squad down whilst trying to balance out and give us some more reflective styles of play. But back to your point, McCausland in there doing that job, what we've seen so far of him has been positive. Yeah. He gets into good positions. He's direct. He's not scared on the ball. Doesn't seem to hide if it's a bad pass or whatever. These are all the things that everybody says that they want from Rangers players. So, hey, the boy's played himself into his international team. He's played himself into matchday squads. He's played himself into the first team. He can continue to do that. The choice and the chance is ultimately his, and I wish him nothing but the best with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, I think he's got a role to play this season, and potentially one that he and none of us thought that he would have to play, even just a few weeks ago. So really hope he gets a really solid chance, and hopefully the new contract will bring that as well. We're not going to go through the game and dissect it bit by bit. I think first half generally we played okay, created some decent chances, just didn't manage to take one. We need to get more clinical, I think, which is a wider point that we can cover at the moment, Tommy, in terms of finishing off chances. The Leon Balogun header, for example, when you're 5 yards out, no matter if you're a centre half or not, you need to be finishing those chances. And those are the chances that Alfredo Morelos would have been putting away for us in previous seasons. And we just not got someone. And I don't think Danilo had a stab at goal as well that Roos saved with his foot. We're just not clinical enough in that final area yet, are we?
100%. Yeah, we're still, we're still missing pretty simple chances, and not clinical, whatever way you want to call it. I'm not entirely sure that I would reference the Morelos with the Balogun one. His heading wasn't always on point. Was ours, to be fair, and no doubt
rose tinted spectacles with hindsight.
That's it. Every single header went in. But no, you're right. And it's a team. Ultimately, you're looking for a team game there of everybody chipping in with goals. We don't maybe get enough from other parts of the team, other parts of the back four. It's it's Tav or nothing to some extent. Midfielders need to do more as well in terms of getting goals. So it's not just the forward line, but we should rightly concentrate on the forward line because it's their sole job. And they were all off the boil as well today. I thought Danilo was relatively poor. I think Sima the same. They were trying hard, but it just wasn't coming together. And then you ultimately get the pressure penalty, sticks it away. Tav, we have hit the bar twice as well, though. And I know you're saying Balogun needs to finish it. Yeah, it does. But we're in a round, we're taking chances. The keeper's made a couple of good saves, and then you get to I'm not hanging one person out to dry because it is a collective. But then you get that big chance once you've got yourself level again to absolutely nail in the coffin it. And Lammers just doesn't do what he needs to there. He puts that anywhere to the left-hand side of the goalkeeper, and it's gone in. And so it's a tale today of lots of chances, lots of possession, lots of domination after a poor start. Getting yourself back into it could have easily walked away with the 3 points if we'd have taken some of the chances that we created. That's probably the frustration. There is no easy answer because up until the winter window, you're stuck with what you've got up top. And Lammers and Dessers were the big buys. And then you're looking at guys like Sima and Cantwell and Lawrence and Danilo and all that to fire in and get more goals. Whilst the club then see what they do about the two that I've just referenced there in terms of Lammers and Dessers.
Is it, and I'm going to come back to Sam Lammers in a second and have a bit of a wider conversation about that one, but as I can see spoke about, I guess we all know how transfer windows work these days. We know that we're stuck with what we've got until 1st of January. We've got 3-4 tricky away games between then and now. We've got Hearts away, we've got Hibs away, you've got Motherwell away at Fir Park, and you've got Celtic away at Parkhead. How confident are you that we can find these extra goals from around the team to get us through these fixtures and get the most out of them that we really can between now and the start of the new year?
Yeah, not walking past obviously Aris. If I concentrate just on the domestic stuff, though, I think is your point. Well, when you're in a bit of a bind because it's not as if I don't think it's going to work, so we can change them out. It is what it is. Those are the cards that you've been dealt with here. Do I think that it'll come and go in terms of chances? Yeah, Danilo can finish. Lawrence will start to finish. Cantwell can finish. Sima will get back in amongst the goals. Lammers and Dessers, question mark. Matondo, can he start, forcing his way in and chipping in more? Will McCausland, do the same? Ultimately, though, I don't see middle to defence and midfield changing overly in terms of them starting to be free scoring. Right, and I'm taking Lawrence and Cantwell and I'm moving them further up the pitch there and not classing them as midfielders, right? But you need those people that I've referenced at the top to start consistently getting goals and creating chances and assists and all that type of stuff. Aye, it is what it is. Do I have great confidence that we'll go on massive scoring streaks? No. Will we do enough to win those games? If I think St Mirren, Hearts, Dundee, obviously the Hearts at Tynecastle one's the tricky one. Do I think we've got enough to beat everybody that we come up against between now and the end of December? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's just whether the players believe that and actually bring the level of performance that they should have brought today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with that one. Thankfully, I'm in control of this podcast, so I can jump about the topics as I like, and I'll push Sam Lammers a wee bit further down the pecking order, because I saw this comment from Callum C. It says, "Why is our striker not in pens, and why is Tab on every free kick?" The penalties one, I've got zero argument with James Tavernier being in our penalties. His conversion rate is insane. The amount he scores and the amount he scores in high pressure situations is incredible. And I would if I could have anyone to hit a penalty to one of those scenarios where if you can have someone to hit a penalty to save your life, I'm pretty sure James Tavernier would be right near the top of my list. But I think on the free kick one, it was an interesting stat I heard today. I think it was on commentary when they said James Tavernier has scored 19 free kick goals for Rangers and Borna Barisic has scored 4 free kick goals for Rangers. When you think about how long those players have been at Rangers and how many free kicks around the edge of the box they will have taken in that time, that's a shocking, that's a shockingly bad record for those players who are deemed and regularly seen as free kick specialists.
Everybody suffers from that. Actually, Roberto Carlos and people like this, if I'm going back in time there a little bit, but you see the crackers and you go, oh, they're a free kick specialist or whatever, they must be pinging them in week after week. Actually, it's not the case. And same with, James Tavernier against Celtic and other clubs, and, great strikes, Barisic the same. But actually, as you've done there, you peel back the layers and you go, well, they've hit X amount and only these ones go in. So, yeah, it builds up in people's minds, and we all fall for it, because you go, oh, but I remember that cracker that pinged right into the top corner and X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends what you're looking for. There are other players who can do it. Is it, their technical ability, the difference between always hitting a shot versus crossing it in? So obviously, we're talking about just direct shots there. Obviously the squad and the manager agrees that those two guys are the best technically to take them, or it would be a different conversation and they would be sharing it out a little bit more. So it is what it is to some extent, in that, yeah, it's always good to understand that they aren't sticking them in the back of the net all the time, but that's par for the course to some extent. Ultimately, that's who's taking them. And I think I don't really have any problem with Barisic or Tav hitting them, because by and large their quality tends to err to the side of positive as opposed to negative. Show me somebody else who does it better in the squad. That's probably the sharp comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not going to have a David Beckham all of a sudden rocking up to take our free kicks for us. So you've got to remember what level we're at as well, I guess.
Maybe that's the hidden thing. Maybe Lammers and Dessers in the background are free kick specialists, and we should get Lammers and Dessers taking them. That's how we rehabilitate them in the mind of the support.
We're attempting to change the rules to turn it into NFL, where you bring on a free kick specialist.
Get Dessers to take the goal kicks. It's probably a wee bit easier.
Well, the way Sam Lammers was shooting today, he could probably be quite good at goal kicks as well. But taking us on to Sam Lammers, you mentioned that you think that he seems to be playing his way into Philippe Clement's thoughts in terms of how he is at training, how he's performing. We've heard in the background that Sam Lammers is absolutely phenomenal in training. Like, he's one of the best players a lot of the team have ever seen in training. It just doesn't convert to being on the park. How dangerous is that? I got the impression that actually that was one of the reasons why Michael Beale kept playing him, was because they would have been so good in training, and then he's got to produce at some point on the football pitch, right? But he just never does. How, as a fan, how concerned are you that Sam Hammers keeps getting game time? Finn Fogel here saying 1 goal and 2 assists in 13 league games. That's dross. Given the number of chances he's had and how often he's had the ball 6 yards or less from goal when he could have scored, I tend to agree, and I would rather not see Sam Lammers in a Rangers shirt at this moment in time. If I'm honest, where do you stand on that?
No, listen, I'm definitely on that side. I don't think anybody's saying here that Sam Lammers is in any way, shape or form showing something for us all to hold on to. I do think there's technical ability somewhere in there. And like you say, we hear from the background that in training, it's fine, but it's training. When the pressure's on, when you pull the jersey on in front of the fans, you then deliver performances like that. And consistently, the performances have been terrible. Right. So when I say he's playing himself in, I just mean that Philippe Clement seems to have him roundabout and he seems to turn to him off the bench and stuff like that. And that's not happening with Dessers. So I was just comparing those two, not to anybody else. But would I be up in arms if we get to December and there's an announcement that Sam Lammers and Cyril Dessers have been found new clubs? No, I don't think it's going to spoil my Christmas. I don't think it's going to spoil anybody's Christmas. So, yeah, he's not the answer for me. I don't think his style of play naturally works for us. I haven't seen the kind of guile and the craft round about the box that we were told he was great at. Saw one finish against Dundee, obviously, but beyond that, no. It's I'm quite happy to see Sam Lammers and Cyril Dessers exit Rangers as soon as practically possible, and if we can make sure that we don't lose a host of money on them, so much the better.
Yeah, no argument for me there on that one. We're fast approaching the hour mark. This conversation has flown by. It must be all the tea and coffee we're talking about. Before we get on to, I guess, looking ahead and starting to say how much that game has an impact on our view of the Viaplay Cup final, and looking ahead to the next time we face Aberdeen. Today, before the game, I think it's Chris Boyd started it after the Celtic beat Aberdeen 6-0, and he said Aberdeen won't have any trouble getting themselves motivated for their next game against Rangers. There was a lot of talk about whether Aberdeen raised their game against Rangers. We saw it in the pre-match build-up for those of us that were watching it on TV. Joe Lewis, the former Aberdeen goalkeeper, was in the studio, and he was obviously trying to justify the fact that no, it's just different styles of play and stuff like that. But it was... it's very telling when you get one game after the other how contrasting Aberdeen's performance is in the two. Do you feel that Aberdeen do raise their performances against Rangers compared to others?
They certainly seem to find an extra gear or two, or some batteries that don't seem to be in play when they play Celtic. Listen, whether it's a desire to please their fan base because they know that that's the big game, and if they win that, it keeps the wolf from the door for pretty much a whole season. A club the size of Aberdeen, that kind of mid-tier localized club, as opposed to being a kind of bigger fish like Rangers, means that a manager can get a lot of leeway if they win the big game against the big club. Right, and Aberdeen fans won't admit this, but that's how they, consciously or unconsciously view that. It's the big club is coming. If they can bloody our nose, then that's the end. They feel like they're back to the Alex Ferguson days and stuff like that, right? They should realise the Alex Ferguson era was, a high point and not consistent with who they are. They are consistently a relatively small club, and they just need to deal with that. So yeah, they evidently do, because I think the players know that if they can get that result, then it'll see them over. Yeah, for a good few months. Ultimately, though, and I did think that we would touch on this, so I was thinking about it earlier. Whether Aberdeen raised their game or not, it's Rangers that are the problem, because we consistently don't match them raising their game. So if Rangers play to their top ability and Aberdeen play to their top ability, I expect Rangers to win. We consistently don't do that. So yes, it's fine to say that Aberdeen raised their game. Ultimately, though, those Rangers players need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, why haven't I matched the intensity of the guy across from me? Why haven't I been able to bring my talent to bear? Why haven't we shown that we're a much better team than this other group, and put them in their place? So yeah, start with your own house as opposed to maybe looking at others.
Absolutely, and that's the point Kyle 1872 touches on the real question is why Rangers can't raise their game. Andrew Barclay's the same, but it's down to us to raise the bar higher than Aberdeen, and absolutely that's the case. And it's 100%. That's what needs to happen. It's actually really worrying how often it doesn't happen. Even in the games when it felt like there was about 2 or 3 sending offs per game against Aberdeen, the intensity was there, and it was just that it was a battle. That's not the case anymore with these games. It's much less of a battle than it was at that stage. And
it is as well. Sorry, without getting too psychological about it as well, there was a time when certainly some of the older Rangers fans here will come with me on this, when it was quite legitimate to say, oh, teams coming to Ibrox were already half beaten, because it was, you're coming to Ibrox, unless all the stars align for you, you're going to get turned over. Now we see our team looking at social media or papers or whatever, and the story is, oh, but Aberdeen will be bringing an uber level of performance to this game. So it's all talk about Aberdeen and how good they're going to be, and our players looked at that, and you think, well, no, it should be Rangers are going to step over their supposed up of performance and actually deliver what they should, which is 3 points by besting a team like Aberdeen, which we should be doing. So, like I said, I might be overplaying some of that psychology there, but the narrative has changed. It's now a thing. Oh, Aberdeen will come off the back of any bad result, but you can tell that they're going to give Rangers a really difficult time, and that translates into results as well. So somewhere that needs to stop, and it needs to be, right, Aberdeen are going to try their hardest and they're going to get absolutely nothing from us. That's the story, and that's how it needs to play out when we come and meet them in the League Cup final. Thanks very much for showing up. You can have a look at the trophy at the start, because it's the only time you're going to see it.
Nice segue again, so thanks very much for that, Tommy.
I'm on fire. I am on fire tonight, honestly. Just throw kind of any topics at me and I'll segue left, right. I'm doing a lot more running than Sam Lammers here, it has to be said.
Take much, to be fair. Aberdeen, 17th of December at Hampden, Viaplay Cup final. How much of an impact, how much of a bearing does today's performance, how the team's set up, how much of a bearing does that have on it? I tend to think none at all, because it's a completely different occasion. It's not a way to Aberdeen, where Aberdeen are more confident. It's a neutral venue at Hampden. It's a cup final. We'll have more fans there than they will. It's up to our players to raise their game at that point. I don't think it will have much of an impact. Do you think it will, Jenkins? I think it actually has shown Philippe Clement's management team a bit of an insight into Aberdeen and how they approach games against us.
Yeah, I mean, Philippe Clement will have watched the game at Ibrox as well, that kind of finished off Michael Beale. Then there's the game today. I think my earlier answer about the psychology of it, because that's twice now, a draw, and they beat us at Ibrox as well. So that's probably the only bearing. I don't think Aberdeen will naturally look to change their style of play or change their personnel for the cup final. I think it'll be very much similar to what we faced into today. Frustrate, get something early, try and catch us, sleeping at the back, so to speak. Yeah, Philippe Clement will have learned a lot, and it's what he looks to do. I'm positive. I expect us to win it before you get to asking me or anything like that. I think Philippe Clement will be looking for the way that he engineers the team not starting as poorly as they did today, really getting the backing of the fans at Hampden, looking to really exploit that space and put Aberdeen into a difficult position and get an early goal as well. And that's when he faces into the second problem that this Rangers squad has had sometimes, which is they've scored and then they don't go for the jugular, they sit back and it becomes whatever. But yeah, that's the only bearing, that it's another attempt against Aberdeen where we've come up short and not been able to get the win. However, I'm sure that Philippe Clement and his backroom staff will be under no illusions of how important it is to just get this trophy by hook or by crook. Don't care if it's the worst performance that we've ever seen a Rangers team, put in, as long as we get our hands on it, for a whole host of reasons that everybody will know. The main one being momentum, and finally just cracking the fact that there's a trophy in. We've got a proven winner. He's done it. He's got some of these players over the line, and then we motor into the season proper as well. So, just win it. Just win it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a very good way to end tonight's podcast. Just win it, Rangers. Thank you very much, Tommy, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, everyone who's been watching us or listening along. Thank you very much for everyone who's interacted with us in the comments. It's been great having a chat about Rangers. And I guess it's not the most positive day, but there's positive days coming very quickly, hopefully. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. If you have enjoyed the content, if you've enjoyed the chat, please do drop us a like on the YouTube video. It really does help us. If you want to have more of the content, if you want to see more of mine and Tommy's lovely faces, please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel. You get a wee notification every single time we go live or every single time we upload a new video. In terms of what's coming up later in the week, Kyle, I believe, will be back on Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. as he starts to build up towards the Aris Limassol match at Ibrox, and then we'll be head first straight into the weekend, building up to St Mirren there as well. So keep an eye out for all that content. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
So I think is it me and Kyle that are at the game in the gantry?
You and Kyle are at the game on Thursday, so that'll be a riot of a post-match podcast anyway. So.
Depends on how we perform, to be honest with you, but there we go.
But yes, thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and until next time, goodbye.